Hello, my name is Sophie Pinkham. I'm a journalist. I write primarily about Ukraine. I have a book that came out called Black Square: Adventures in Post-Soviet Ukraine. And I also have a background in public health, especially related to AIDS and drug policy. And so the Pulitzer sponsored project that I was working on was connected with women and AIDS activism in Ukraine, which is, of course, now experiencing um, a war between the Ukrainian government and separatists who have taken over two regions in the east, Lugansk and Donetsk. And so the story that I worked on with the photographer Misha Friedman is about a group of AIDS activists. Most of them were born in eastern Ukraine, although most of them have now left because of the conflict. And they were longtime AIDS activists. Many of the people featured in our article worked in an organization called Svitanek, which means dawn in Ukrainian. It was founded by drug users, former drug users, and people living with HIV to help provide health and social services for other drug users and people living with HIV, and also for prisoners in eastern Ukraine. And so when the war started, they were faced with a difficult decision about how to keep their services going, because many of them had supported the Maidan Revolution. Many of the social workers at this organization had supported the Maidan Revolution, and so it wasn't safe for them anymore. Some of them were even attacked. It wasn't safe for them anymore to stay in eastern Ukraine. They chose to leave, but they didn't want to abandon their clients, many of whom were not able to leave, whether because they didn't have the money, they didn't have anywhere else to go, they had people who were dependent on them who weren't able to leave, for example, elderly parents, or sometimes they just didn't want to leave. So the Svitanek social workers came up with a solution as they were learning that HIV medication and tuberculosis medication was running out in the so-called Donetsk People's Republic and Lugansk People's Republic. And what they chose to do was essentially to smuggle medications which had been bought by the All-Ukrainian Network of People Living with AIDS, with HIV/AIDS, with the support of the Global Fund. So they were medicines that had been obtained legitimately, but these social workers from eastern Ukraine packed them into their cars, or in some cases after the car crossing was bombed, the single car crossing into Lugansk, a group of mostly women carried medications in just in plastic bags, walking across the checkpoint, which is a process that takes about, it can take up to 12 hours or even longer theoretically because of the lines, and it can be quite dangerous since the shelling is not always predictable and going on continuously. And so what we were seeking to do with this project was to show, first of all, how the war is affecting people, how the war and the sort of reversion from Ukrainian AIDS policies, which were relatively progressive, relatively open to sort of scientific approaches and to Western support, how Ukrainian AIDS policies in eastern Ukraine have now been replaced by essentially what's even worse than Russian policies, which is an approach that denies that, drug addiction is a treatable sort of medical condition, and is not very interested in providing people with HIV with real health care.